Awesome. So we are live and I see the audience trickling in. I'm going to spotlight myself for a minute so that people can see me talk. Those of you who are in the session already, I see around 25 people who have already joined. Just a quick audio check. Let us know the city that you're dialing in from. It's always good for us to know where our audience is coming from. So in the chat box, let us know the city you're dialing in from. Okay. I don't yet see any responses, so I'm assuming Zoom is not connected for people yet. Okay, I see the responses coming in. I see someone dialing in from Malaysia. I see Shayan from Karachi, Pakistan. I see Ishan from Mumbai. Keep those responses coming in. I know Zoom takes a minute to connect. This is also a time filler, plus also gives us a good idea about where our audience is coming from. So keep those responses coming in. It's always great to see the diversity of our audience. So I see Sanskriti from VNS. I'm assuming that's Vishakhapatnam or okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I see a teacher from Kolkata. I see Sanskriti from Uttar Pradesh. Or Varanasi from Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. Okay. I see Tikendra from Delhi. I see Yash from Uttar Pradesh as well. I see someone else styling in from Malaysia, Karnataka, Gujarat, Delhi, Kashmir. Okay, so keep those responses coming in. Anyone dialing in from outside of India, let us know that as well. It's always great to see. We usually have attendees coming from all over South Asia, Africa, Middle East, and sometimes Europe as well. So if any one of you is dialing in from outside of India, let us know the city and the country that you are dialing in from as well. Nelly, I see you are dialing in from Ghana. Welcome. Thank you for joining us from this session. Zed, your question, how long this masterclass is going to be? So the masterclass is going to be around 35 minutes long. Post that, we are going to talk about the programs from Cohort School of Business. So that's going to be another 10-15 minutes. We look forward to wrapping up everything within the next 1 hour. So 60 minutes to 70 minutes from now. Stay put in this session. The reason being there are some special scholarships which are on offer as well. So American University's Cohort School of Business has also participated in the Seed Scholarships Fund. There are exclusive scholarships going all the way up to 75% of the tuition fee, which are on offer for this particular session attendees. So stay put with us, and we are going to talk to Lisa Francis, who is from the admissions team, and Professor Caroline Bruckner, who is a professor of taxation at the school. We are going to talk to them shortly, but keep those responses coming in. Tell us the city that you're dialing in from. Wait, I see some more. I see Ebenezer from Ghana, Aril from Delhi, Manur from Pakistan. Welcome to all of you. It's great to be hosting you. With that, we have around 200 people in this session. So let me kickstart the introductions and let's get started on today's very interesting topic, where we are going to talk about the gig economy and talk about how it's reshaping the business world. Today's guests are very special. We have Professor Caroline Bruckner, who is a tax professor at American University's Cohort School of Business and the managing director of Cohort Tax Policy Center. She's going to be taking today's masterclass, tell us about taxation around the gig economy and how all of this works and comes together for the business world. To tell you a little bit more about her, she has testified multiple times before both the US House and the Senate Congressional Committees, as well as the IRS. Since 2015, she has released groundbreaking research on the gig economy, as well as women business owners and the US tax code. She teaches courses on business law, fundamental principles of federal income tax, and business implications of the future of work at the Cohort School of Business, American University. Prior to joining American University in 2015, she worked for the US Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship from 2009 all the way till 2014, and ultimately as chief counsel, where she developed small business tax legislation and advised the committee and its chair on tax, labor, and budget matters. Those of you who don't know this, Cohort Business School is based in Washington, D.C., United States, so very close to the White House, consequently has direct access to the White House and your participation. A lot of their faculty participate in research, collaboration with Senate committees, and we get a taste of that today through this session. We also have Lisa Francis, who's the Director of Admissions at the Cohort School of Business. Lisa is going to tell us about the programs that Cohort offers, a lot of master's program, a full-time MBA program as well. So we are going to talk to Lisa about all these programs at Cohort, and we will also hear from her on how you can get an application fee waiver for applying to programs at Cohort, and also about the scholarships, the special scholarships, which are on offer for attendees of today's session. So stay put with us. We are going to start this session shortly, and I'm going to hand over the screen to Professor Caroline Bruckner. I'm not going to do my own introduction. My name is there. Most of you have already interacted with me in the past through previous sessions, so I'm not going to take any more time doing that, but I'm going to hand over the forum to Professor Caroline to tell us about the gig economy in the US and all the tax legislation around that. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I am absolutely delighted to be here. My name is Caroline Bruckner. That was a lovely introduction that covered a lot of what I've done in my past work life prior to coming to Kogod. At Kogod, I teach at both the graduate program level as well as the undergraduate program level. At the graduate level, I am the course coordinator for our online MBA business law program, which I teach with wonderful faculty. I developed that course. I also teach in the online business law course for the Masters of Accounting program, and I teach the residential business law course for our Masters of Accounting program. In addition, next semester, or actually next fall, I will be taking over the graduate taxation program for our Masters of Accounting students. I am thrilled about this opportunity. I love teaching graduate students. I have a lot of experience with teaching international graduate students in particular in the Masters of Accounting program. They are wonderful to work with. I've had a really good experience and been able to develop really good relationships with a number of those students and seen them go on to do good things. And I am just delighted to be part of presenting some of the stuff that we do at the Kogod Tax Policy Center. So in addition to being a professor, I am the managing director of the Kogod Tax Policy Center. We develop nonpartisan independent research on issues, tax issues that are specific to small businesses and entrepreneurs. And it is a continuous loop, because a lot of the research that we do influences and we communicate to policymakers about policy decisions that impact small businesses and entrepreneurs. But we also embed in our curriculum our research and what we're seeing in labor market trends, in business market trends with respect to some of the tax issues that I'll be talking about today. So this is just a general presentation that we've developed and we've presented at the National Tax Association meeting, at the American Bar Association. But the DNA of this presentation and this research is actually embedded in all of the courses that I teach, and is relevant to how we can learn more about these issues in a classroom setting. And I'm not the only professor that does this at Kogod. At Kogod, the research that your faculty that you would take classes with is very much part and parcel of the curriculum. We like to bring into the classroom things that we're working on outside of the classroom and how we're influencing national thought leadership on business and tax issues, in my case, or in finance issues, or in business leadership issues in the case of my colleagues. But today I want to talk about the Small Business Tax Literacy Project. This is a brand new initiative that we announced in April of this year that measures how business owners and gig workers are individuals who have business income outside of their traditional wages that they get from their jobs. So anybody with a side hustle, anybody engaging in freelance work, anybody that sells services outside of a traditional job to earn income, how they wrestle with or understand their tax filing obligations. I'm sure many of you have different understandings of tax laws where you're from at the state, national, or local level. In the United States, we have a very complex federal tax system, and we also have a state tax system. And I undertook this research to try to discern how business owners understand their own tax filing obligations. Do they know how to comply with the tax laws that apply to them? This is critically important because tax savings is a key way that business owners can help to access capital to fund their own business operations. Now, there is a massive $688 billion problem in the United States. And that problem is the level of taxes that are imposed by law and the level of taxes that are actually collected. There's a $688 billion gap between what's owed and what's actually collected. We refer to this as the tax gap. I wanted to consider this problem from the perspective of not whether people are willfully not paying their taxes or avoiding their tax payments, but whether they know what to do when tax time rolls around. Do they have baseline tax literacy to understand how to comply with their tax filing obligations? This is effectively a compliance problem. Now, there are all sorts of forms that employers and firms that pay independent contractors are required to send to workers in lieu of doing withholding of tax payment from employees' wages. So if you're an independent contractor, that's my puppy, apologies for that. You might work outside of traditional employment. She's very excited. It could be an Amazon delivery. But when you work outside of traditional employment, you are responsible for paying your own taxes. You do not have an employer that withholds a small amount from your paycheck to send it over to the Treasury. You instead have to preemptively do that. And that's called part of our pay-as-you-go system. Because in the United States, you pay taxes throughout the year that you earn income. And if you work for an employer, they pay it for you. Scarlett. They pay it for you. And then, hold on just 1 minute. I think that's a good introduction to my life. When I teach, I very much bring the reality of how I live into the classroom, and that happens when I teach online. Every once in a while, I have a crazy dog that barks like crazy, and I very much appreciate your patience with that. At the same time, I recognize as a professor, you all have things going on in your lives, and I really try to be as accommodating as possible because we all have things going on while we're trying to be professional and move through what we need to get through in various class sessions or what have you. So thank you very much in advance for your patience with my very loud, annoying dog. But to get back to what we're really talking about, we're talking about the tax gap and how it impacts tax collection and whether or not people actually know how to comply with their tax filing obligations. Now, when there are high rates of noncompliance, like the $688 billion tax gap, there are different things that governments can do to effectively work on their tax compliance. They can, number one, promote policies that promote education at the government level. Number two, they can increase enforcement. Or number three, they can reform the tax system. Those are basically the three things that governments can do, and they're not in isolation. They're really interconnected strategies that governments adapt. So as part of the Small Business Tax Literacy Project, what I have focused on is looking at the education piece, because that is an area that the Internal Revenue Service of the United States government and the U.S. Treasury Department has typically overlooked and not considered when trying to develop strategies to address the tax gap problem that I introduced earlier. In my view, if we can put together data and evidence that shows that people actually don't know how to comply with their tax filing obligations, rather than focusing exclusively on enforcement or the fact that it's willful evasion, might be another strategy that we can help people better comply and at the same time take advantage of tax breaks that result in tax savings for those folks. I also think it's important to recognize at this point that in the United States, there is a general literacy problem. And what do I mean by that? I mean that 32 million Americans cannot read. Our tax system is incredibly complex, and asking individuals and business owners who maybe just sell their services and perhaps don't have a formalized education or challenges with literacy to comply with an overly complex tax code is too heavy a lift. And are there ways that we can target those taxpayers to help them comply, while recognizing that literacy in this country is a challenge, like it is in many other places? I am not the only person that is focused on these issues. The OECD has put together an incredible study that measured a survey of 59 different countries that had developed a whole range of strategies and on tax education in particular. And they distributed a survey. 59 countries participated, 140 different tax education strategies were submitted in response to survey requests. And these tax education survey strategies generally fall into 3 different buckets of how you can increase compliance. You can teach tax, which means that you teach people how to comply with their tax obligations, and you target that based on specific populations, students, or business owners, or just individuals. For example, you can target retirees, or you can target younger people who are earlier on in their careers. But different teaching tax strategies targeted to specific populations was a popular strategy that the OECD survey identified. The second thing that you can do to help tax education generally is communicating tax. What are the communication strategies that different countries are doing to help folks look at tax education strategies? Are different countries incorporating AI into their tax administration services? That's another area where we are looking at very closely, because the Internal Revenue Service in the United States has a very antiquated website and doesn't use the latest technology to help people understand how to fill out their tax forms. Other things that you could do around communicating tax: building specific information campaigns or tailored messages. Are you using social media to help people comply with their tax obligations? At the same time, are there particular guardrails in place that account for misinformation strategies that can accompany different communication strategies, because there is widespread fraud and abuse with respect to actors taking advantage of innocent taxpayers trying to comply with their tax code. Lastly, are there specific assisting with tax programs? Do you help people actually file their taxes? These are a whole range of strategies that the OECD analyzed in terms of tax education generally. Now, why does this matter, and why are we at a business school really caring about this? We care about this because we recognize that how people work is changing. It is changing fundamentally, and it is a change that was accelerated as part and coming out of COVID. What you see on this slide is the survey data from a nonpartisan independent firm that tracks the independent workforce, people that don't work for employers for wages or salaries, but instead work for themselves as independent contractors, freelancers, or people with side hustles. And what this shows is that the most recent data is that there are now 65 million people in this country, in the United States, working outside of traditional employment. This is radically different than how Americans had, or people in the United States had long been measured in terms of the US workforce. It used to be that you worked for an employer, they paid your wages, they withheld a portion of your wages and sent it to the IRS in prepayment of your taxes as a ongoing throughout the year pay-as-you-go tax system. But when you work outside of that kind of relationship as a gig worker or independent contractor, you are responsible for doing the accounting, tax, and business planning around paying your taxes. But if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have the proper tax education, and in the United States, we don't typically teach tax education at either the high school or college levels, you don't know how to comply. And so that, my research suggests, is a major contributor to the overall tax gap. And as you will see from this data, this is a problem that is not stagnant. In fact, it is growing exponentially, and it has continued to grow since 2015, when this data was first starting to be collected. So in 2015, there were about 40 million people that had some sort of side hustle, were engaged in gig work or independent contract work or part of the independent workforce. There are now 65 million as of 2022. And the latest numbers for 2023 show that that 65 million jumped one more time up to 72 million. More and more people are working remotely. They are working for themselves. They do not tend to show the same workforce patterns that we saw in the previous century or even in recent decades. Businesses have to change to accommodate this, and governments have to recognize that structural tax systems have to accommodate these major changes in workforce. This is the latest data from 2023, which shows that there is a 72 million Americans that are working outside of traditional employment. Why does this matter for gig workers? Well, it's part of their overall financial literacy to understand how they do their own accounting, business, and tax obligations. And we know that in general, in the United States, financial literacy curriculums, many of which are imposed at the high school level, do not include any kind of tax education. And so we know that there is a significant gap between what students are learning at the high school and college levels and what they understand their tax filing obligations to be. So to better measure this problem, I organized a survey together with my colleague, Barbara Robles, who is a tax economist and who worked for the U.S. Federal Reserve Board in Washington, D.C., and did lots of survey products to try to drill down to how to measure what people know about their tax filing obligations. We don't have time today to go through all of the survey details, but what I can tell you is we measured a population of small business owners, gig workers, and entrepreneurs, and we had a whole range of respondents from 20 to over 80. Most of our respondents were between 40 and 70 years old, and most of our respondents were white, and about 37% were not white. Overwhelmingly, our respondents of our population had at least a college degree. That is very different from general education trends in the United States. In fact, in the United States, approximately only a quarter of individuals have completed at least college. And what we found is, even though 76% of our survey respondents had a college degree compared to 24% of the general US population, only 13% of our survey respondents learned how to do their taxes in college. Even fewer learned how to do them in high school. And essentially what we figured out is that the tax filing obligations or rules that people were supposed to be able to comply with and understand were essentially a great big mystery to a huge range of business owners that we surveyed. Approximately 1/3 of our respondents didn't know whether or not they had to pay quarterly estimated payments, which is how individuals that work outside of traditional employment pay their taxes. And a quarter just didn't know how to pay their taxes at all. 54% of our respondents didn't set aside any money to pay their taxes, and 30% didn't know and also didn't set aside any money to pay taxes. But interestingly, 37% of the respondents that we surveyed felt nervous, scared, or bad about filing taxes. Filing taxes is a tremendous source of stress and anxiety for a number of individuals. And this is what our survey data confirms. We learned that education is not in place and that individuals are stressed, scared, and upset when it comes to tax time. That gives credence to our research and view that the United States government should take additional steps to target specifically tax education strategies like all these other countries have done around the world, as is tracked by the OECD's survey data. So what do we do with this? We have all of this incredible research. We know that this is a problem, but it's not enough just to do the research. We also have to fundamentally attack the problem and deal with it at a policy level. So we take the research that we do, we communicate it to officials at the U.S. Department of Treasury. I have been presenting all of this research at major tax, accounting, and law conferences to raise awareness and build consensus for a comprehensive strategy in order to attack these problems at the U.S. federal government level, and also to generate more research from colleagues that also could be helpful in attacking this problem and designing strategies that can impact these overall trends that we have identified. But we also attack this research and our findings at COGOD. I developed a class with my accounting colleagues to teach tax education to undergraduate students. We developed that class in 2021, and we actually had it adopted by the university at as part of the AU undergraduate core, because we know that we need a formal option to help people learn how to do their taxes at the university level. That's just a really small fraction of the kind of research that we do. And what I hope is a way that you can understand how we really begin to target the research that we do, how we communicate it across both the nation and with policymakers, stakeholders, but then more practically, how we take that research and we actually use it at the university. It is not just research that we publish in a journal for a publication citation count. That wouldn't mean very much, and that's not what our active research faculty at COGOD is about. We are change makers. That is part of COGOD. That is part of who we are. And that's how we conduct our research. And that's how we communicate our research. So if you start to follow, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you start to follow COGOD on any of our social media channels, you'll see over and over again professors who are communicating their research to policymakers or to Congress, or really trying to not only develop groundbreaking, important research for the classroom and for their colleagues in whatever discipline in which they are experts, but also having impactful research, because we believe at COGOD that business is a force for meaningful change. That's not just our motto, it's part of our DNA. It's part of how professors really approach their jobs, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, with respect to their research. So I'm happy to share that slide deck with anyone who is further interested. I'm very hopeful that we will see some important new trends announced out of IRS with respect to education for gig workers based on the survey data that we've done. our next steps are we are looking to do another survey of a broader national population. And we hope to engineer that survey work and have nationalized results, hopefully by next April, that we can announce and really reiterate over and over again how we know that this is a problem, and we can nudge and prompt the IRS to actually address more comprehensive strategies to change it. But fundamentally, what I'm trying to do is revolutionize how we teach financial literacy at the undergraduate and high school levels to include tax literacy. There are too many young kids that we see that don't know anything about how to comply with their taxes, and we really need to give them the tools to effectively comply with their taxes so that they can be able to generate capital on their own initiative from tax savings to better fund their businesses. So thank you so much for your time. I am happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. This was extremely insightful. Great to know about the tax implications and how the entire ecosystem is going over there. There are a number of questions which have come up, but before I take up the audience question, I want to ask one question of my own.
Sure.
So what I wanted to understand was, given Kogot's location, right, the proximity to the White House and the whole US administration, government, how do your students benefit from this proximity? Do they get a chance to interact with some decision makers? Do they get a chance to visit some of them, intern with them? Any such opportunities that are possible for Kogot students?
So a couple of things that I do in my classes that are specific to my classes is, number one, I make my students go to a congressional hearing. All of my tax students that I have at both the graduate and undergraduate level are required to attend in person, or they can watch online a U.S. congressional hearing from either the U.S. Senate Committee on U.S. Senate Committee on Finance or the House Ways and Means Committee. I do that because the benefit of going to KOGOT in Washington, D.C. is that you are there and you have an opportunity to see how policy, tax policy in particular, is made and debated at the legislative level, at the national level. And I also think that if you are a Master's of Accounting student, you need to understand the process in addition to the outcome of what tax rules and laws are. I think having that kind of insight is really critical to developing your professional skill set so that you can communicate it to future clients who may not know that future clients. I also can attend hearings. I think that engaging at hearings, writing letters for the record over Thanksgiving, which is a U.S. holiday that we celebrated just a couple of weeks ago. I worked with a professor in our management and sustainability program, which is another program that I will be teaching in the spring, which I'm super excited about. But those students actually wrote a letter, a statement for the record with their professor in response to a hearing that a House committee held. So those students put together research, worked with the professor, wrote a letter that is really try to get students actually engaged in the process.
Great. That's a great benefit, right? The proximity to all the decision makers and the chance to influence or at least evaluate the policy in real time. That's a great advantage for Kogot location-wise. What I also want to do is take up some questions from the audience. I think the most upvoted question is people wanting to get a recording of this session later. So Nikhil and everyone in the chat who's asked for the recording is going to go live on Seed's YouTube channel by tomorrow afternoon. You'll get a WhatsApp message with the recording link as well. You'll get the American University's Kogot scholarships link as well, application link as well over WhatsApp by tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. The recording is going to be available on our YouTube channel by tomorrow afternoon, India time. Let me take up some more questions. And one question which I particularly like, this is from Abhay Singh, who's asking, are there any specific tax benefit for companies to employ gig workers? Why do companies like Uber, DoorDash prefer gig workers instead of getting them on full-time roles of the company? And I remember a few years ago, there was a huge case around this about the Supreme Court deciding whether such workers need to get healthcare benefits or insurance from the company or they shouldn't. So I remember something happening in India as well about this and America as well about this. But if you remember that case, that would be great.
That is such a great question. I could not be more excited. Thank you so much for asking it. So, how we treat workers, whether or not they are full-time employees or independent contractors, is subject to a whole range of different federal and state laws. It is an entire week's worth of content that I cover in my business law class because it is fundamental. It's not only tax considerations, it's also labor law considerations. It is something that is in flux. But there are a lot of financial considerations that businesses have to take into account before they hire a worker as a full-time employee versus an independent contractor. Tax considerations, you pay much less in tax when you hire someone as an independent contractor, and that could be part of the reason why we see a significant increase in independent contractors and the independent workforce. But it's also being driven, that trend is also being driven by workers who want to have more flexibility, independence, and control over how they work. What's happening that's different is that we're now officially wrestling with this outside of the traditional debates that we've had for decades over worker misclassification. Now workers are saying, we prefer to work this way versus I'm a misclassified worker. But there is an entire range of financial considerations, legal liability considerations, as well as labor law and tax law considerations that we cover extensively in the online business law class for the MBA program, as well as the residential and online Masters of Accounting courses that I teach on business law. I will say, understanding business law, if you want to work in the United States, or even if you do have clients with workers in the United States, don't sleep on that course. It is a really good course, and you can take it as an elective regardless of what graduate program you're in. I could not recommend it more. I think it's critically important to have a baseline understanding of these fundamental issues. And we try and work really hard to keep the content as current as possible, so that it reflects these workforce trends that I just spent, half an hour telling you about.
Great. So absolutely bang on this. And to the audience, whether you are looking for a career path in strategy, entrepreneurship, taking any decisions for any company in your future course of work, knowing about the business law, the tax laws is extremely important. Your decision making is going to get influenced by a lot of these factors. So these are extremely important courses that I can vouch for. I want to take one last question from the audience before I invite Lisa to tell us about the programs at Concord. And this question is around the resources that the students can tap into. So I have a question from Madhavi Gupta. Also, Pascal is asking this particular question is about what kind of resources or what books they can refer to if someone wants to get a jump start on the US tax laws.
That is a great question, particularly if you are looking to enter into our Masters of Accounting program. I am in the process of, well, first of all, go online, go to irs.gov and look at some of the free resources that are available there. I'm in the process of working with colleagues to try to develop a series of basic tax principle videos that we can make available for our students, particularly our international students, because one thing that we're really cognizant of is with our Masters of Accounting students, they're coming to the United States, and many of them want to take the CPA exam, of which US tax content is a big part. And so we have to make sure that we're covering that content so that students are prepared. Now, to be fair, when you come, we teach you both for the profession and overall general content that's required, but you also may need to take a specific CPA prep course. That's a different story for that's specific to Masters of Accounting students, but we are really trying to develop generalized tax content to help students get better acclimated to some basic US tax principles, starting with this is what the US Constitution is. This is how it allows the government, the federal government, to impose tax. This is what's different between the federal tax laws and state tax laws, because it's really confusing. And especially if it is, you know, your first time attacking some of these issues. But having said that, I have had just a number of brilliant international Masters of Accounting students succeed. It's not easy, but nothing is easy in graduate school. Graduate school is hard. I did 4 years of graduate school. It is hard. That's what you're signing up for. But is it worth it? In my opinion, I have the career that I have that I want because I pursued a graduate degree. And I can confidently say I have had so many really, really hardworking, great international students succeed in both my US business law class and my US federal income tax classes. And I will say, much to the dismay of my colleagues, I think my classes are the hardest. That's why they put me on here, because they want you to know that I am nice, but my classes are also really hard. And I have just seen students succeed over and over and over again. And I truly believe that. I mean, I've seen it. So.
Thanks, Caroline. That's extremely interesting. And I know there are a lot of more audience questions that have come in, but in the interest of time, I'm going to pause on the questions. I'm going to run a quick poll now and also invite Lisa to join us. Lisa is the director of graduate admissions at Cohort School of Business. So I'm going to invite Lisa to join us as well. While she's joining us, I am running the poll right now. It's on your screens. To the audience, it's on your screens right now. What I'm asking you is, which Cohort Masters program are you most interested in? So Cohort has a Masters in Accounting, Masters in Analytics, Masters in Finance, Marketing, Sustainability Management, and then they have the full-time MBA program. Do note, for the full-time MBA program, you need to have minimum 2 years of work ex. Most successful applicants tend to have more than 3 years of work ex. Average tends to be around 5.5 years as well, sometimes higher. So keep that in mind while evaluating the options. For most of the master's program, Lisa, I understand they don't need to have work experience. For none of them, they need work experience, right?
That is correct. Yep, you can enter into the master's program as a fresher.
Great. So for the master's programs, you don't need work experience, but if you're looking at the full-time MBA program, you need to have minimum 2 years of work ex. Average tends to be around 5.5 years. So keep that in mind. Do evaluate the options. I see 65 people have responded to the poll. There are more than 300 people in this session right now. So please do respond. It's really great to see what and where your interests lie. And yeah, the responses are surprising. I can see the responses in real time, but I'm sure no surprises for Lisa and possibly Caroline when they see the responses. Great. I'm going to keep this poll open for another 5 seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do respond. I do see a number of questions coming in the chat as well. So that your question on how Cohort is on a comparative basis with other prominent business schools. We are going to take all of those questions. By request for we post your questions in the Q&A box. It becomes much easier for me to moderate those questions. So keep those questions coming in the Q&A box. I'm going to start taking those questions very shortly, but now let me end the poll and share the results as well. So as has been the trend, majority of people are leaning towards analytics. Analytics is the new buzzword and it's popular across industries. So a lot of people wanting to get into the MS in Analytics program, followed by the MS in Finance, Marketing, Accounting, Sustainability Management, and the full-time MBA as well. So great. Thank you for those responses. It's great to see where your interests lie. What I want to do now is, before we take more questions, I want to invite Lisa to tell us more about these programs at Cohort, their eligibility, their requirements, all of these things, plus the application fee waiver. And I am going to talk about the special scholarships that Cohort has for attendees of this session as well. So we are going to do all of that very shortly. So stay put with us. But I want to invite Lisa to tell us more about the Cohort School of Business and its programs.
Hey, Lisa,
Okay.
I'm going to pop off. And I wanted to say thank you so much for letting me get to share my research with 300 people around the world. That's a really big deal. And I'm so excited that I really appreciate that opportunity. I very, very much appreciate the chance to interact with prospective students. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. So thank you so much for having me. And I sincerely apologize for my terribly annoying dog. I will put her in a different room if you ever let me come back. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. I just love getting the chance to interact. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Caroline.
Caroline. We appreciate it.
For joining us.
Well,
Over to you.
thank you so much, Sanjay. And everybody, I don't have a really cute dog to share with you today, but I'm really excited to share with you a little bit more about our graduate programs here at the business school. And I think that Sanjay really teed it up well with the poll of our program offerings and which ones that you're interested in. So let me take you a little bit on a deep dive in terms of what our programs look like and what we offer here at the business school. I always love sharing with prospective students that in addition to overseeing our admissions efforts here at Kogod, I'm a proud alum of the MBA program. I completed my MBA here at Kogod in 2021. And so I love having the opportunity to share a little bit more about what it was like to be a student here. And I'm happy to answer any questions in that vein as well. So let's go on ahead and jump in here. These are our graduate programs that we offer here at the business school. You'll notice we have a mix of online and on-campus programs. I would imagine that nearly everybody on the call today is interested in an on-campus program, given that this would afford you the benefits of OPT after graduation in the event that you have an interest in building a U.S. network and working in the U.S. for a year to 3 years after graduation, depending on your program type. Nearly our entire portfolio is STEM designated. Our on-campus programs, I should say, are STEM designated with the exception of our MS marketing program. But as I mentioned, nearly every program has an ability to be a STEM program with the exception of that one. So we recognize that you have an abundance of choice when it comes to determining where you want to go to business school and what schools to even consider. Why should Kogod be on that short list and perhaps even at the top of that list? So it is an intimate community. Our average class size is about 30 students, and it really is very tight knit. This idea of experiential learning and putting you in a situation where you are learning by doing is really at the heart of every program that we offer. It is baked into every graduate curriculum. We want, as Caroline talked about, we want you to use the city as your classroom. We want you to go to congressional hearings. We want you to have the ability to work with experts on a particular project. That is really the heart of the Kogod experience here, and with having DC as the backdrop for that. Our Office of Career Engagement is specifically designated towards our business students. We want students to feel supported throughout their career search for after graduation. And you have access to a career coach, whether you're an MBA student or a Master's of Science student, that is helping you throughout navigating the next step of your career with resume edits, cover letters, workshops, career fairs, coaching. All of that is embedded into the career experience here at Kogod. The Center for Professionalism and Communications is a really unique part of the Kogod experience. We are really in the business of crafting the entire business professional. So our Center for Professionalism helps you with perhaps the softer skill set that comes with a business education. So putting together an effective business memo, effectively publicly speaking, all of that maybe isn't necessarily covered in one particular class. We have a center designated just to that. And then our Valoric Center for Entrepreneurship. Caroline could not have been a more perfect warm-up act for the entrepreneurship here at Kogod. We recently received a meaningful grant of money from Gary Valoric, an AU alum, to rename the Center for Entrepreneurship after his family. And this is a great center on campus. If you are interested in starting your own business or interested in venture capital, we have access to all types of events, faculty, staff on hand that can help you with just that. So it's an incubator to help you throughout any entrepreneurship journey that you might find yourself on. Campuses and Arboretum, sustainability is a top priority. Our campus is carbon neutral. We are the first carbon neutral university in the United States, so we're very proud of that. And we have an extremely diverse student body. We have students from 130 countries in all 50 states. Again, something we're also very proud of. So let's talk a little bit more about applying for admission and what we ask for from you as you're putting together a file for our program. I'm going to provide a quick overview for each component of the application process, so that you get a nice little overview as to what we ask for from you. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at the end here. First is an online application. Our application is completely digital. We don't ask for a paper copy of anything. All of this is just found right online here. And if you have your phone handy, you can go ahead and hold up your phone to the QR code. That QR code will take you right to the page for you to go ahead and apply. So in the event that you want to go ahead and start your application right away, definitely feel free to do so. A personal statement is the next item that we ask for. This is 750 words, in our way of getting to know you, who you are, what you're interested in, what you're looking to do next. All of that is something that we're looking to understand in the personal statement. This is our first way of getting to know you. I always sort of couch this, the personal statement, to our prospective students as this is your virtual handshake, if you will. We don't know much about you unless we've met you on the road or had the opportunity to talk to you via Zoom, outside of the personal statement. So really make it shine and really craft an original and authentic piece. There's no right answer to the personal statement. We're not looking for you to say that you want to pursue a specific industry or specific background. The correct answer here is your own unique and authentic story. Next, valid GMAT or GRE score. So all applicants are encouraged to submit a GMAT or GRE score. It is not required, though. We've removed the GMAT barrier in the sense that if you find that that is not the best representation of who you are as an applicant, you do not have to submit that. Speaking specifically for our MBA program, in the event that you have a score and you find that it is competitive, a competitive score for us would be starting in the low 600s. We would certainly recommend that you submit that as part of your application. That is a really good indicator for us on how you're able to perform in the classroom. So the MBA is a little bit of an outlier in that it's not required, but certainly something that I think can be helpful in the event that it is a particularly strong score. Next, we ask for a current resume. This is the same resume that you would use to apply to a new job or opportunity. This is not an academic CV. We want to understand what your professional experiences look like. And as Sanjay mentioned, our MS programs do not require you to have work experience prior to entering those programs. This is really designed for anybody in all stages of their career, whether you're coming back into the classroom after having a handful of years of work experience, or maybe for your second or third career, or for students that are just graduating, are a fresher, and are looking to accelerate their career right from the jump. So for our MS students, completely fine if you don't have work experience. For our MBA program, we do ask for at least 2 years of work experience. 3 is preferable, as that is really when candidates become the most competitive compared to our pool. Next, we ask for 1 letter of recommendation. This is ideally from a current or former supervisor. I would highly, highly recommend that you find a professional contact to write your letter of recommendation. Again, to reemphasize, current or former supervisor is the best bet here. In the event that you are currently an undergraduate student and you maybe haven't had a ton of internship experience, you can ask a faculty member, permitting that you have worked with this faculty member and have gotten to know you in a more meaningful capacity. Maybe you've served as a graduate, a research assistant or a teaching assistant, or worked on a special project with them. That would be a good person to ask. I would highly recommend any personal contacts or anybody like that. We will not accept a letter of recommendation unless it is a professional letter of recommendation. Next, transcripts from all universities attended. This is, of course, a copy of your undergraduate transcript. And then if you happen to have another graduate degree, we'd like to see a transcript from that as well. So if you have perhaps another master's degree, please include that. Unofficial copies are fine for the purposes of application review. However, in the event that your transcript is not in English, we will ask you to have that transcript translated and evaluated for us. That preferred vendor is WES. I also want to mention that admissions committee does reserve the right to request a transcript evaluation at any time. In the event that we need additional information in the form of an evaluation, we do reserve that right to be able to request that. Next is a valid English language proficiency test score. We ask for a minimum of a 100 on the TOEFL, a 7 on the IELTS, or 120 on the Duolingo. This is for folks that may be joining us from overseas. I do want to highlight that if you are joining us from India, we will ask you for an English language proficiency score. One of these 3 exams is completely fine. There is no preference, one versus the other. Next, we ask for an optional essay. This is exactly how it sounds. It is completely optional. And this is really a part of the application that you can feel free to use in the event that you find that there's a part of your application that needs a little bit more explanation. Maybe you had a poor semester in undergrad, or maybe you had a gap in your resume for one reason or another. We are human on the admissions committee, and we want you to have the opportunity to explain what that might have been. So certainly feel free to use this optional essay. We do take it into consideration when evaluating files. Next is the interview. There are 2 programs within our program, our portfolio that have an interview component. These are by invitation only. The first of which is the MS in Marketing program, and the second is the full-time MBA. So in the event that you've been selected for an MBA, you will be notified via email. Application deadlines. We just moved past our first deadline for the full-time MBA program. Our MBA program is a fall entry only program. So just something to keep in mind. Our round 2 deadline is coming up in just about 10 days, December 15th. And then finally, our international student deadline for fall 2024 is February 15th. And these are our application deadlines for all of our other programs. You'll notice they're exactly the same as the MBA program. So we just passed October 15th, our first round. December 15th is round 2. Round 3 is our international student deadline, which is on February 15th. The reason why we want you to ensure that you apply by February 15th, if you are interested in joining us for fall 2024 as a student from overseas, we want you to ensure that there is enough time to process any visa paperwork. In fact, this is a really good idea to start thinking about this now as you're navigating through the admissions process. What will happen in the event that I get into a program and I want to pursue school in the fall? How will I go about gathering my documents to potentially get an I-20? How will I start to think through the visa appointment? How will I start financing my education, etc.? All really good things to think about right now as you're applying. Tuition and fees. Our tuition is $1,922 per credit. Our graduate activity fee is, and actually, let me back up and say, that's our tuition per program. And then, so that is our tuition value per credit, I'm sorry. And then that is to be multiplied by the number of credits per program. So for example, our sustainability program is 30 credits. Our MBA program is 45. Just good to have in mind how many credits each program requires in order to graduate. And then we have a variety of student fees. So if you take a look at the menu board below, you'll notice that there are a number of fees that you're assessed depending on your student status. I'd like to direct your attention to the last line here, the Metro UPass fee. This is a great perk that I like to highlight for any student. If you study with us at a full-time capacity, which is required as a student from overseas, you receive a Metro UPass fee that you can use for DC public transportation in an unlimited capacity. So you can use it to get to work, to class, to hang out with your friends on the weekends, to go to dinner at night. All of those things are included. DC is a highly walkable city, and it is one that you can easily rely on public transportation. I always like to tell folks I've lived in DC for 12 years. I do not have a car. So it is something that I'm really proud of. You can get around DC on foot. It's very conducive to a student lifestyle. In the event that you are admitted to our program and you choose to join us, we'll be so excited to have you. We will ask you for a $500 to $1,000 enrollment deposit, depending on which program you are admitted to. If you are admitted to an MS program, your tuition deposit is $500. If you are admitted into the MBA program, your tuition deposit is $1,000. Last slide here, each applicant to our program is automatically considered for merit-based scholarship. We will let you know of any award that you've been given at the time of admission. Again, we do not see anything related to financial need. That is not handled by our office. So we will only see your merit-based funding when we are determining scholarship. So just keep that in mind. We'll let you know of any award at the time of admission. And this is it. This is a variety of ways that you can get in touch with us moving forward. You're welcome to talk to our team. kogodgrad@american.edu is the best way to start. That is our general email inbox, and we look forward to talking to you there. And then this is our application fee waiver code. As promised, please feel free to go ahead and use this to apply to our programs. This is our gift, and think of it as an early Christmas or holiday gift for those who celebrate. Apply to Kogod. We'd love to take care of that application fee for you when you go ahead and apply. And that will do it. Thank you so much to everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, permitting we have time.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. This was extremely insightful. I do have a number of questions that have come in. I'm just going to do a quick audio check. My mic is on. Yes, it is. Great. So, Lisa, some questions are coming in already. And I want to take up one question which was asked in the chat, but not in the Q&A box. But I still want to take this up. This was about, according to you, being an alumnus of the school and the program. What sets Kogod apart from other prominent B schools in the DC area and across the East Coast of US?
For sure. So it's difficult to perhaps assess what the other schools offer, because I'm not an expert in what they offer, but I can tell you a little bit more about what I thought was particularly unique about Kogod and why I was ultimately excited to be able to study here. The first of which is that, we talked about small class sizes, and that is something that time and time again, we hear prospective students, admitted students, enrolled students talk about as the primary reason why they're excited about Kogod, that and location. And the answer is, and the honest truth is that I have found that our faculty members treat you like a colleague. We are really excited. They're really excited to, have the opportunity to mentor you, to foster you. I didn't feel like I was just a number in the classroom. I really felt as if each faculty member was invested in my own personal growth. I didn't have a business background prior to coming into the MBA program. I studied political science as an undergraduate, and I felt like Kogod set me up and still does set our students up in a way that you are prepared to walk before you're running. So.
Great. That's great to hear. Lisa, one question. So I see more questions coming in around admissions criteria and all of these. There's a question from Kelvin asking if you offer any full scholarships to international students, or are those usually partial waivers?
Yep. So international and domestic students are considered alike in our scholarship process. We do not separately bucket international students and then separately bucket domestic ones. For our MS programs, we do not offer full tuition scholarships. So please be advised that if you are applying to one of our MS programs, that there will be a financial obligation in the sense of tuition. So I would say the maximum scholarship that we typically offer for MS programs is half tuition, and those are for our most high achieving applicants who are the strongest within the application pool. For our MBA program, we do have some full scholarships available. They are limited. They are dependent on the strength of the applicant, the quality of that particular round, where we are in the admission cycle, a variety of different factors, but those are limited. But I would say across the board, an overwhelming majority of our scholarships are partial.
Great. So to the audience, I've posted the link to the Seed Scholarships Fund. Kogod has committed 3 scholarships. I think there's one for the MBA program that can go up to 75% of the tuition fee. And then there are 2 more for the master's programs at Kogod that can go up to 50% of the tuition fee. So these are exclusive to candidates who are applying through the Seed Scholarships Fund. So if you haven't yet, go ahead, start your application. It's a fairly simple application. You just need to submit a 500-word essay explaining why you should be considered for this particular scholarship, submit your scores and all of that, and that's good enough to make the scholarships application. So if you haven't yet, the link is in the chat. I've posted it over there as well. Lisa, the next question which is coming up is from Samuel, who comes from an English-speaking country. is IELTS or TOEFL or Duolingo still a mandatory requirement? And again, the same for Indian students as well. Majority of us complete our undergraduate education in English. The courses are taught in English. The transcripts say that the degree certificate says that the education was done in English. Still, do you require a IELTS, TOEFL, or a Duolingo score?
We do. We will still require a Duolingo, I'm sorry, IELTS or TOEFL score.
Okay. So Samuel, I think that answers your question. As an international student applying to COGOD, you need to have one of the language test scores available as well. Lisa, the next question that comes through is from Mohammed, who's completed his CA Inter. So that's the Chartered Accountancy level 2 kind of exam in India. So he's completed that. He doesn't have a full-time bachelor's degree or a bachelor's degree as yet. So, but the CA Inter is considered equivalent to a bachelor's degree in many countries. Would that apply to COGOD as well? Or would you want to email you all this and then you would want to check this?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Mohammed, I'm not as familiar with this credential. We do ask for a bachelor's degree and not a credential that is equivalent to a bachelor's degree to be considered for admission. So from what I'm understanding, it looks like likely not. Happy to peek into this further if you want to go ahead and email us, cogodgrad@american.edu, but it does not appear that it would be.
So Jeanette, my recommendation would be to write to the school, reach out, possibly send them the courses, the transcripts, the scores that you have got, and let them evaluate if they would consider this equivalent to a bachelor's or not. Great. I do have a number of questions which have come in for Kylene around the tax implications. I'm not going to take those up, but I just want to quickly do a run through. Okay, I think we have taken most of the questions. I do see some questions or some posts come up in the chat as well. Marianne from Ghana has already applied to the Masters of Accounting program, so she's looking forward to a decision. We know a lot of the attendees have also applied to the scholarship fund already. So Lisa, you'll be evaluating their applications as well over the next couple of weeks. But with that, we are over time in the session, so I want to take everyone's permission to wrap up this session. But I do want to reiterate some points before we leave. First is that as an attendee in this session, there's an application fee waiver available for you to apply to any of the master's programs at COGOD. The code is applied to COGOD. I posted the code in the chat as well, so make the most of that. As I mentioned, you're also eligible for some special scholarships through the Seed Scholarships Fund. These are exclusive scholarships which COGOD has committed to the Seed Scholarship Fund. There are 3 scholarships available, and you can apply for those as well on the Seed website, or the link is in the chat as well. And there are some more questions which are coming in, Lisa, but I don't want to take those right now. My request to the audience would be, if we have left any of your questions unanswered today, please reach out to the school, write an email to the school, and I'm sure Lisa's team would be happy to respond to those questions and clarify all those doubts for you.
We absolutely would. And I am typing in the chat here, cogodgrad@american.edu. That is where you can find us. That is our general team inbox. This is a high volume time during the year. So in the event that it takes us a few days to get back to you, don't worry. I promise we will. My one team member is very cognizant about ensuring everybody gets a response. So hang tight, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for taking out the time to do this session. Thank you for those exclusive scholarships as well to the Seed Scholarships Fund and the application fee waiver. I'm sure this is going to benefit the audience massively, and they'll make the most of this opportunity. Thank you once again. Thank you to the audience as well. Thank you for being patient. We still have 180 people in this room today, so thank you for being a patient audience. It's been wonderful hosting all of you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great evening. Have a great day, Lisa. Take care.
You too. Bye, Sanjay.